Right, so my paper, well, what I'm going to talk about now is going to have no real powerful, important thing to do with financial markets, but what, like almonds. But what it should do is provide an interesting insight into impression management of the employees of these markets, or just general people. And so I was going to talk to you today about a new paper that myself and colleague Tina and Tom are working on to do with the boss dilemma. But as unfortunately / predictably this is kind of underdeveloped at this moment of time, so I'm going to talk to you about my old paper, which kind of sets the scene for the boss dilemma, and then give you like an overview and show you the preliminary research we've done into this dilemma. So this is the name of the old paper. It's like, if I could sing like Sting, then I'd sing it. But I can't, so I won't. So this is the old paper. And so most of the data I'm talking about today is from there. So basically, here's sort of the main issue, or the most sort of poignant issue, which is in the press. That people get sacked because it's in with them on Facebook. So this is someone getting sacked from, I think this is Lloyd's. Yeah, and this is do you remember when in London, when they had to stop drinking on London Underground, they had loads of big parties that advertised on Facebook, and lots of people got called in and disciplined by their companies because of this. And this not because they were well, a few of them because they actually helped organise the parties, but not because they did anything particularly wrong at the parties. Just their names were linked to these gatherings which caused problems, and also that they were articulating their company names on their Facebook profiles. Alright, so just to sort of I'm going to sort of warm you into the whole online multiple audience problem, which is what I look at. So like, if you can think of situations where you may have been doing something embarrassing, something like picking your nose, and you kind of think, ah, like you see a camera go and snap, uh-oh. Or maybe you've had a bit too much to drink or eat, and then one of your friends or enemies comes in and takes a photo of you, woke up in the morning, felt maybe a little bit rough, and kind of looked at Facebook and thought, oh. And this is something which has happened to me a lot, and this is why I decided to investigate this whole project. Right, so, or sometimes you might just see, like, sitting there looking at your phone, you see that a friend might post something on your wall, which might make you think, oh no, it's going to get me in trouble. So, the problem is that these kind of instances may lead to these outcomes. We talked about getting sacked, often people disciplined. One in every 4 divorce cases now cite social media as the problem. And the main one is Facebook. This is for 2 reasons. Like, first of all, it helps reignite old flames from the past, and secondly, it breeds jealousy. Alright, so the thing is, like, these kind of circumstances of sort of showing embarrassing photos and so what, it wouldn't really be so much of a problem if, like, you were just friends on Facebook with your close friends. Or acquaintances, or in some cases even your family. But on Facebook, you're not just friends with these audiences. It probably is the case you're friends with lots of different, multiple audiences, and you present to them simultaneously one presentation. So this is different to offline. So offline, generally, you cater your self-presentation or your impression management based on the audience that you're facing. So if you're at work, you might put on a more professional persona in front of your sports or teammates. You might be like a jock, you know. In front of maybe in front of your parents, you put in front of your girlfriend or boyfriend, wife or partner. You might be all sort of loving and sort of cutesy, a self that you would not want to show to these guys. So generally, you cater your presentation based on the audience, based on the perceived audience expectations. Online, the thing is, you have to present simultaneously to multiple audiences. The research will show that these have different expectations of what they think you should be. So, multiple audience problem occurs when these perceived expectations of these different audiences either are not the same, running in the same direction, or actually conflict with each other. For example, so basically they're heterogeneous in expectations. So your sports team mates might think you ought to be a crazy party animal, and if you seem too mundane on Facebook, this wouldn't be living up to their presentations. Your boss might want to think, well, they ought to look professional on their social media. So that this is a conflict. And your close friends think, oh, I'm not too professional to it, so kind of in the same way as the boss. But anyway, because this is the multiple audience problem, and what happens is, I've shown that social anxiety increases when you present to multiple audiences. So, the kind of theory I called upon self-discrepancy theory to look at this. So basically, we have in self-discrepancy theory, which is by Higgins, they look at they say that the more discrepant you are from your guides, and there's two types of guides. You have ideal guides and ought guides. Ideal guides are a representation of what you or others think you ideally should be, and ought guides are representations of what you or others think you ought to be. Sorry, it's a tongue twister, that one. But how to differentiate between ideal and ought is simply like, ideally in a war I'd like to be a hero, but I ought to just do my duty. That's the best way to think about it. So, and ought guides are linked with anxiety, ideal guides depression, and ought guides are more linked with the social side. So that's what I've called upon ought guides. And basically, when you perceive that your actual self isn't meeting the expectations, meeting an ought self, then you feel anxiety. So, the general idea behind the reason multiple audiences lead to increased anxiety is that, of course, there's likely to be more discrepancies because there's more people to be discrepant from. And if these guides actually conflict with each other and are different, then even if you make inconsistency with one guide, that might instantly mean you conflict with another guide. So it increases the chance of social anxiety. So that just illustrates that these guides are different online. So I did run a survey, and this survey basically had two main goals. First one was to provide evidence for the assumptions underlying this online multiple audience problem, which is like, first of all, that people befriend multiple audiences. Second, that they believe that they are viewed by these audiences regularly. Third, that these audiences are heterogeneous in norms. And fourth, that they don't generally use the privacy setting, the grouping function, which allows you to segregate and target your audiences with different amounts of information. Because if you could segregate exactly what you put out to each audience perfectly, then this wouldn't be a problem, because you could just do as you do in normal offline life. To measure the discrepancies, I used 15 different attributes, 10 of which were from an existing scale. There's stuff like intelligence, attractiveness, leadership, and 5 of them are what I call negative discrepancies, ones that I put in there, stuff like alcohol consumption, smoking, sexual promiscuity, and recklessness, because this is important to the sample, which were students. Okay, so basically we found out people do befriend multiple audiences. Yes, they believe they're viewed. They view a multiplicity of these every couple of weeks, and believe they're viewed by a multiplicity of these as well. Interestingly, these were highly correlated. So people base their perceptions on how many people view them, on how many they view themselves. We found out using ANOVAs that yes, for all 15 attributes, over three different audience guides, so it's parents, employers, and relational partners, that they differ in expectations across all of them. And this is very significant. Also, privacy settings, only 32.6% of people use the listing function, and actually further research we've done shows that even though people use the listing function, not many people use it properly at all. Right, so this kind of shows that multiple audience problem is a problem. And then the second part of the survey shows that those who had increased discrepancies from their ought guides reported more cases of dyadic anxiety, cases where Facebook caused them anxiety with that dyad. And that was significant as well. So, right, we have multiple audience problem, and it causes more anxiety the more you perceive that your Facebook profile isn't living up to the expectations of its audience. So that's cool. So what happens is once anxiety is caused, if you look at Carver and Shire's model of self-regulation, or most other models of self-regulation, is that once an emotion occurs, in which case is anxiety, then self-regulation or imprisonment management follows. So if you were tagging a photograph of like that guy on the toilet online, you might think, oh no, anxious, my boss might see it, my mum might see it, what's your next action? Your next action is probably, one of these. So you might, you probably detag it, you might delete the content, you might phone up your boss and say, no, that really wasn't me, it's just a lookalike of me, accounting behaviours. You might kind of just be apologetic, or you might just like put your boss on limited profile or something like that and just hope they haven't seen it. So these are what I call online self-regulations. And this is like from a separate experiment I've done that I won't really talk about in detail today, but it's pretty cool. This is to show that the online multiple audience problem leads to offline self-regulations, which I think is really, really powerful. The fact that just because you're scared of what's going to happen online, you change your actions in reality. So this is some preliminary interviews showed this, but we've actually shown this experimentally as well through using it at an economic measure. So at a party, people go, and this is reported by lots of people, at a party, cameras have gone around, and apparently as soon as people see cameras, they become more self-aware. It basically raises, it makes their audiences salient, and they start to regulate based on their perceived expectations. So people hide beer bottles behind their back, they throw cigarettes on the floor, and this is one that came up a lot, that people would often move away from attractive alternatives that might make their relationship partners jealous. Well, I've certainly done this one before. So this is offline regulation. So I've started to liken this whole thing to a panopticon. Now, Foucauldian's notion of a panopticon, and for those who don't know what a panopticon is, it's a structure which asserts an automatic functioning power. So it's a prison. You can imagine it like a prison, where in the middle is a guard tower. Round the outside, all the cells look into the middle. The prisoners don't necessarily know whether there's a guard looking at them from the guard tower, but they know there's a guard in the guard tower. But in the fear that they'll be seen by the guard, they behave themselves all the time, in essence becoming their own prison guard. So if you think about that with Facebook, we all sit in our cells and we don't know if anyone's actually going to see all this information that comes up. It is a possibility. So we behave ourselves, we become our own oppressor, we detag stuff, we self-censor what we put online. And this idea of panopting stretches from just being on our cells on Facebook to ourselves, offline. So at the party now, like I want to sit next to that pretty girl and have my picture taken, but I know that it's going to be seen by the prison guards, so I better stand over there. So this is known as the participatory panopting, which we participate in, and is filled with like camera phones and recording devices, and even just like when people say stuff that could be linked to online, just verbally. So this panoptic effect is growing. All right, so and this bad animations. Right. Anyway, right, so this is one of the sort of side contributions of the work that currently the literature says that there's 3 types of selves that people present online. They're real selves, they're ideal selves who they ideally like to be, and they're hopeful selves, which are actually kind of a middle point between the real self and the ideal self. And what you present kind of depends on the anonymity afforded by the site. So this guy's real self is kind of like grey wizard looking dude. He ideally wants to be Justin Bieber, but he normally just puts on this like slightly smarter version of himself. But what I'm saying is that these 3 presentations, okay, may exist more for some people than others, but there's actually a 4th school of thought, which is the ought self, and in environments which are highly in low levels of anonymity, such as Facebook. Then this is the kind of ought selves, the more prominent presentational style. And this we've shown this because most people use more approach, sort of avoidance-based behaviours online rather than approach-based behaviours. All right, so just going to quickly, if anyone wants to get my slides, but this is the taxonomy of different types of regulation, when you can do it, You can do it after you're about to get in trouble. You can do it on order to prevent. But so I'm just talk you briefly about the boss dilemma because I know it's time is pressing and so is lunch. So the boss dilemma is basically when you receive a friend request from your boss, and I think that quite nicely summarises the dilemma, you know, that you're faced with. So, and then I don't know if anyone's seen this programme on BBC One or no, BBC Two. It's really terrible. It's called Snog, Marry, Avoid. Yeah, it's called Snog, Marry, Avoid, and I think that the boss dilemma is pretty much like that. You've got three options. You add, limit, deny, / ignore. But so you get presented these three options, and you kind of think, oh right, okay, if I add my boss, then that's like, you know, that's what they want me to do. But if I do, then they'll be able to see all my stuff, and that's going to get me in trouble. So I can add them, you know, but I'm going to have to worry about my presentation for a while. If I limit them, I might then they won't be able to see some of my sort of worst stuff. I might be able to they won't be able to see my tag photos. I don't have to worry so much. But the problem is, it's a bit if they'll know that I've limited them, which is not a very friendly sign, it's a bit of a social faux pas, especially if they've offered full access to their site. To deny and ignore is they're basically the same thing. Because if you deny it, they won't be told that it's been denied. They'll just think you haven't accepted or rejected it. It'll just be like ignored in their eyes. But the boss is pretty much going to know that you would have checked Facebook within the last week and you would have seen this friend request, and then somehow you're holding out on them. So it's like it's not a good sign. It's like, you know, it's socially not cool. So you have to balance the pros and cons of these three actions. And this is what our new project, Tina, I and Tom's, is looking at. So I've done some preliminary work, the 30 interviews, and I looked at the boss dilemma, and for these are third-year undergrads, and I asked them the things like, you've just started a graduate job of your dreams, and a middle manager adds you to Facebook, what happens? And like, there's lots of, they just went, oh, that'd be the worst day ever. Lots of them swore at this point, to be honest. But this quote sums up quite nicely. Pretty much, this person said, I'd accept, because, but then they'd be worried about what, but they'd have to, this one that says they have to audit their profile. They'd accept with reservations. They'd be worried about what the boss could see.